Oh, I think we're doing this live from my Prius. It's True Hoops, little Zoom from quarantine show. Bring it in. Um, I'm in my car today. It's gonna be fine. Don't worry. Everything's totally fine.
Nothing
David,
to see here.
what's that?
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. It's a long story. These are hard times, people. We're all doing our best. You kind of muddle through. All right. I got the Bring It In hoodie. We're fine. So, Jarod Hector. It's Friday. We usually start with 9 by 90. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. So, there's a lot going on in the world right now. One of the things that I read to keep track of politics is there's so much happening is David Dane's unsanitized newsletter that he sends out. He is the executive editor of the American Prospect. And it says time for $2,000 checks. Now, we all know that in Georgia, the Democrats did win those two special runoff elections, and they now will have control of the Senate, which is a good thing. Joe Biden initially was not down with $2,000 checks. He said, if we win this in Georgia, we're going to have $2,000 checks. Okay, people, remember what I've been saying all along. It is time we hold these people's feet to the fire to the promises that they make. Do not let them renege now and say, oh, well, there's budget concerns, there's a deficit, there's this, there's that. No, we don't want to hear about how you're going to do a tax credit rebate or some kind of some other credit. No, people are struggling and need cash in their literal hands to pay their bills. That's what we want to see. And so you need to call your local people who go to Washington and who represent your interest and say, hey, people need this. Continue to extend unemployment benefits because we have not seen the worst of this. Yeah, okay, the vaccine's here and all that. However, the economic fallout that we're going to see as a result of this is going to last for, probably another several years. So pay attention, people. Hold these people's feet to the fire.
Most of us, I think, that are rational people believe that this was a really terrible thing. I have lifelong friends who called me or texted me, and they were unsettled, to say the very least. But there are people out there that weren't involved in the Capitol looting, but they believe in it, including the guy that runs the Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police, who said there was no arson, there was no burning of anything, there was no looting, there was very little destruction of property. It was a bunch of pissed off people that feel an election was stolen somehow, some way. Evidence matters. Until that appears, shame on them for what they did, but it was out of frustration. There's no fights. There's no, obviously, violence in the crowd. They pushed past security and made their way to the Senate chamber. Did they destroy anything when they were there? No. Very different than what happened all across the country all summer long in Democratic-run cities, and nobody had a problem with that. So we know almost every word in that entire, it was an interview quote, is a lie. And it's just a good reminder that while we think we see things rationally, not everyone does, and not everyone that was in that process in D.C. Isn't necessarily tied into it, because they believed in it. They just couldn't go there. And this guy is the Chicago chief president for the Fraternal Order for Police. It's a scary, scary time.
I'm so excited that I'm the one in the car, but it's Judy's having technical difficulties. Okay, so as our irate people were storming into the Capitol, the name on my mind was Arkady Babchenko. I saw him speak. He basically just watched TV in Putin's Russia, watched the regular news, and then volunteered to become a soldier in the Russian army invading Grozny, the capital of Chechnya, which he points out is part of Russia. It's like invading Memphis. Right. And they leveled it. At one point, there was an order to kill every male, he says, from age, I think, 6 to 70. I wrote about this. Judy's showing the story from a while ago, which I just made free for everyone. But his point is that the television is a box that produces zombies, and that the problem isn't guns, and the problem is propaganda, which is incredibly effective. And he rolls through the history of Putin's Russia and how there's always been an enemy, and Putin's reason to hang on to power is to present himself as the solution to whatever the perceived threat is. But it's just bad information. This is the thing, like, these people who were storming the Capitol, they just didn't do their homework very well. When they talk about why they believe they have a wrong done by, it gets real fuzzy. Like the vote count was good if you just study it. Just do your homework. So I think this is the thing is we have a propaganda problem, and well, I can see the clock. I'm just going to assume that I'm done there.
So this is an article that came out in the Jacobin earlier last year. And, you know, I'm going to continue my rail against capitalism and its ills. You know, we hear about socialism, and I said this before, that people think of it as long lines waiting for cans of soup and bread from the government. And that's how the right wing has demonized this term. But socialism and democratic socialism in particular is a good thing, right? So from this article, capitalism is an economic system with a distinct set of property relations. A small group of people, the capitalists, owns what Marx called the means of production, the land, buildings, machines, and raw materials necessary to produce useful things. The vast majority of workers do not. They sell their labor to capitalists for a wage, and the capitalist directs them to produce certain goods, which are then sold to the market. After paying wages and purchasing whatever else they need to replenish the means of production, capitalists keep a share of the revenue and make profits. Everyone knows that, right? Basic how the system works. Over the past hundreds of years, that system has grown wider and wider and wider. The profits have gone up astronomically, not even like a U graph, literally a straight arrow up.
Rocket ship.
Wages have been flatlined. That is a problem. And it isn't this thing where like, oh, just go apply your wares somewhere else and you can make things better. No, where? What? These guys all compete with each other to do the same thing. Keep the labor costs down so that we keep these people subjugated to our whims. So when you hear people like AOC talk about democratic socialism, this is what we need in this country, because more people who have access to capital, guess what? Means more goods being bought, who helps everyone, including the wealthy people at the top.
Go ahead, Judy. This guy says it all.
What you gotta say?
Yo, so we live right now and loses lane. So look, we got a lot of folk out here really upset about the fact that not only they lose the Senate, then lost the White House. You know, they feel like the nation about to go in the piss. But the crazy part is, a lot of folk out here are gonna be ones benefiting from all these democratic policies. It's just that they tied down to goofy ass racism and bullshit ideology. So look, stand back, man, get a clear view of the goddamn country. We looking like, nah, look, and just some black folks out here storming the Capitol. I remember once upon a time we had black men in suits out here in the cold. It was 6 of us in the cold, standing on these steps, and we couldn't even get up 4 steps before they came holler at us in suits. These motherfuckers out here got over 500 to 1,000, 2,000 people out here and stormed the goddamn steps, pushed it against security guards, right? U.S. Capitol Police. They would have been fucking shot on arrival if they were black folk, right? So not only looking at privilege and racism in America, but you're looking at the biggest fucking entitlement known to man right here in front of you, folks. Live and direct right here from Washington, D.C., man. This is actually, when you look at this shit, man, you gotta love freedom of speech, but you gotta love the bullshit, man, that's going on in this fucking party. They don't know what to believe right now. They don't know if they should be giving out $2,000 stimulus checks. They don't know if people should have health care. They really don't fucking know. You know what they do know? Entitlement and fucking privilege. This is what we're dealing with right now. It's 2021, y'all. 2021. 2021.
I don't know who that gentleman is. I'm actually going to try to track him down because I'm certain we'd be best friends. That's all I have to say about that.
That my favorite part is the word goofy.
It's the best. I agree.
Totally. Yeah.
I love it. I hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about basketball, you guys. Taylor Snar is a young man who made a website called Dunks and Threes. We've talked about real plus minus a lot. Can I see your comment, Caleb? But okay, take it on authority from my friend Stephen Alardi, who was one of the co-inventors of real plus minus, that today this is the best adjusted plus minus thing out there. We've been digging into it. We'll get into a lot more later, but if you dig through, it's very early in the year, but one of the things that really kind of blows my mind is if you look at the ratings here for the different teams, the Milwaukee Bucks with an adjusted 118.3 offensive rating. The entire league is bunched up between 104 and 114, and they're at 118. There's nothing between all the teams' offenses and defenses around the whole league that is close to this. You can look at that little ratings map over there. The Bucks offense, with Giannis being kind of average, is the greatest force in the league right now, which is kind of weird and amazing. Their defense has not been good. It's middle of the pack. But I don't know. I just thought that like nobody predicted that the Bucks would not get their dream trades this summer, not have Giannis excel, and get Jrue Holiday and be just absolutely unbelievable on offense. I just think it's a little place a flag in that. We'll come back to that as the playoffs emerge.
I was going to say, yeah, we'll come back to that in the playoffs.
I had them going 31-6 to be fair for the first 37 games. So none of this is surprising to me, other than Giannis isn't playing great. They're not doing great wins wise, but we know that'll even out. All right, sorry, Jarod.
No, it's all good. So on a lighter note, I think my baseball fandom is back. So
What?
I grew up a New York Mets fan. 1986, I remember that World Series. It was awesome. We won that bad boy. 88 was a heartbreak, losing to the Dodgers in the NLCS. And then, we've had some hit or miss moments in the middle there. And there's, got a bunch of, overpriced veterans. They out of their prime. And it was just bad being a Mets fan. And as a fan, look, this is what you spend your free time and your money with. Why do I want to be miserable? So I quit them. I was like, they suck. Now, Steve Cohen, yes, he is a bad billionaire, horrible, one of the front men of the capitalist machine, but he might bring me joy by making my Mets better.
Oh, Jarod! There's a loophole.
We are back on the train, baby. We got Carlos Carrasco. Listen, we got Lindor. All I'm saying is, when you're rooting for teams, it is nice to have competent ownership and management back in charge, because that means good things for you. Will Ponds, they're the king of broke boys, and their whole deal with Madoff and the Ponzi schemes and all that. So listen, all I'm saying is sometimes billionaires can serve their purpose. Thanks, Steve Cohen, for buying the Mets and making me a fan again.
86, Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden.
Yeah.
Tampa boys.
Doc was my favorite player growing up, Coach.
Yeah.
Like, favorite player.
Both Belmont Heights kids from Tampa. Yeah. All right. So there's no one really knows this gentleman's name. They think it's August Landmesser. And I want to say it's there's a couple of different people they think it could be, but they think it might most likely be him. And there's this famous photo where, there's 100 Germans doing the Heil Hitler thing. And yes, Caleb, your ancestor. I thought about you. And Mr. Landmesser has his arms folded. The story is he was dating a Jewish woman, and you were not allowed to have sex with a Jewish person in Germany. It was against the law, literally. So he refuses to salute. I think it was at a place of business that he does it. And when I saw this picture, I thought about Colin Kaepernick, right? Who peacefully protested a legitimate thing, and we all know what's happened and the movement behind it and against it. And then those same people that, if to a man or woman, those that stormed the Capitol, if asked, what do you think about kneeling in the NFL or the NBA? How they'd respond. But storming the Capitol and doing what they've done, I'm sure they think it was in their rights to do, which goes into a whole thing about white. I don't love the word white privilege. I call it white fortune, but it's hard to argue that. They feel privileged enough to do whatever they want. And it reminds me of the Dred Scott decision where basically white people can do whatever they want with black people. That's what our Supreme Court justice said. It's a stark reminder of just how far we've gone the wrong way.
Thank you, David. All right, so I think sports are great. We love sports on this show, right? And they're incredible for like exercise, teamwork, but also this giant lesson that like you just don't win every time, right?
Right.
Michael Jordan, Joe Namath, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong, all have driven home like crap. Like we shouldn't get that one. And it's a wonderful lesson in acceptance, right? We divide into wins and losses in sports and everybody gets all of them, right? I feel like this thing that happened at the Capitol building has a problem right there. All of those people outside understand losing and know it happens sometimes. Like, and I've seen interviews, everyone's like, yeah, sometimes you just don't, if the vote is fair, I'll accept it, right? I think there's a big problem here, which is, one of the problems is Donald Trump saying, let's walk down to the Capitol. Another problem is the significant number of politicians who are like, look, we need to honor the notion that this doesn't feel fair to, according to Ted Cruz, 39% of America, right? I think that's where what you really need to say is, nope, you were wrong. Like, you just got the L on this one. Like, then we're rehearsed in accepting the L. But if your coach and your GM and the athletic director or whatever are saying, ooh, the ref screwed you, now you don't activate that same sequence of emotions where you go and sulk, right? Like, now you activate the one where you fight. So I feel like in addition to the impulse to be, violent and to do all sorts of terrible things, I think there's this problem of just it's time to suck it up. It's time to just take the L. It's okay. Everybody, both parties lose all the time. But I just think we need to get to the point where that's what we're actually doing.
I love it.
I think I'm probably out of time.
And Coach, I will say, the reason why privilege is the word for me over fortune is because privilege isn't something granted to you, right? You've done nothing to earn that. And it's awarded to you and your group and not at the exclusion of someone else, right? So that's why privilege to me, I think, is a much stronger and apropos word in this case.
You didn't grow up, I respect your comments, Jarod. You didn't grow up in my house. We didn't get shit from my dad. We had earned every privilege he gave us. But I understand your point, of course. Yeah, I'm not going to quibble for sure. I mean, we're on the same side on this. But hearing that young man talk, no one knew that he was, on our side in a sense. And he's in the middle of this. And I could only imagine the craziness. Have you seen the video of the woman that was actually killed?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's on video. I think just days before she was ultimately killed by the officer when she was storming the building. She was out of her mind, saying crazy, crazy things. Not suggesting anyone should die. Certainly, I don't think she realized she'd be dead in a day or two. But I bet there were 1,000 people just like her saying this crazy shit. And I said to my wife yesterday, I like what Henry just did with his last piece. Part of that is either there's truth to what you're saying or there isn't. And we have to stop allowing people just to bold-faced lie. I don't care what their position is. Ted Cruz, he's just lying when he says what he says. Donald Trump has always been lying, and that's what has to stop, because they did have a chance to protest and contest the election. They had many chances. I think 62 court cases, and they lost 61 of them. That is how the process works. But when this guy from Chicago, the Fraternal Order Police president, who said there's no evidence, right? It was your side that couldn't provide the evidence. We don't have to do anything. You challenged the election and lost everything, literally everything. The only thing you didn't lose is whether or not they had to be 6 feet or 20 feet away when they were counting in Philadelphia. So we have to.
The trick is like we have to agree that there should be evidence-based decisions.
Correct.
Right? Like that's where we're falling down here. It's like, if you just think that there should be, we're pretty good at this. Legal could come on and tell us about how you present evidence. And like, we did that. We did the check, the audit that Ted Cruz wants. Better than that. They went through, they put every fucking vote on video. Right. If you're looking for evidence, if you're in the habit of that, you know that it was there all along.
That's right.
You have to be someone who actively didn't. You had to be like, you had to be parked in a Prius outside of Starbucks, not giving a shit, to get to the point where you think now it wasn't fair.
You have to treat it like Nikola Jokic in a last second jumper, just cool, as if you have a penguin as a pet. On the last subject on this, did you guys see the representative from Pennsylvania? At 1:30 in the morning. This was Thursday morning, when he was addressing. He got angry and started calling Republican congressmen liars. And that is not something typically done in-house. They use other words. They didn't use that. And there was almost a fight.
Yeah.
Like, you saw people rushing to it, but the C-SPAN cameras didn't catch it. But then when that was done, he said, and the congressman from California couldn't help but laugh. He had a mask on, but you could see he was laughing. The Pennsylvania congressman said, "You guys are protesting the votes in my state because of unconstitutional laws that were passed for the election that your party passed. You asked for it," and then everyone started laughing. "You asked for it, you fought for it, you got it passed, and you're complaining about those. That was your decision, your choices." This is where we get down to true hoop. If we just stick with the truth first, It's not always easy to find, as scientists would tell you. It ain't easy to make sure you get down to the facts, but if that's your goal, if that's your mission, and you eventually get to that, we all at least can have a foundation to build on. You can choose to ignore it if you want to, but then we're just playing a different game. If we can play the game we're supposed to play, we can play a different game. That'd be a different game.
David, there's a that moment was Connor Lamb speaking, and
Lamb,
and there was a moment of I keep trying to not pretend this is all about sports, but there's sports in every part of the story, which is crazy to me. But that moment was the fight was about to happen. Some Texas congressman was super upset and was rushing over, and then stepping in his way was the former NFL player from Texas. I forget his name, but I'm like, that's why we didn't have a fight.
Oh yeah. Having been involved with pro athletes for a long time, and when I was a young high school coach, my athletes were all bigger, stronger, faster than me. Seeing a bunch, honestly, just being honest here, seeing a bunch of dudes dressed up in suits act like they're going to fight. Sorry. You know what? They push. I've seen that. Okay. When I was coaching kids from the streets, not all black kids, just kids from the streets, doesn't matter what their color was, there was no pushing because the small guy has to throw the first punch or he loses. I didn't know that growing up where I grew up. My little guys, boom, they're throwing a punch right away. These guys weren't going to fight anyone. They act tough. Come on. The football dude knew he wasn't there was no concern. But I like the fact that they were rallying to Mr. Lamb's defense a little bit. But you can't argue with what he said.
Caleb right on, he said, stay ready. Look, Dad, the little guy, I mean, that's true, right? Like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's why, like, and Poppy says this all the time, little guys in the NBA and NFL are dudes you don't want to fight. Because they had to, like, they're always ready to scrap. And, like, they
have to.
Right.
They can't win the second punch fight. That's what I learned firsthand. I had to watch for my little guys, man. They were going. They were ready to go.
I'm not going to taunt an elected official, though. I feel like it's very important that they didn't fight. Like when your government is run by people who have fist fights in the chamber while they're debating, like, it's fucking Armageddon, right? Like it's very, very important that we not have this like gamesmanship of physical fighting in that room.
I think you're actually getting to a much bigger point too, and we all, I think, have our own opinion as to why the Capitol Police allowed all this to happen. Clearly, it got out of hand. They have a dead officer. The White House flags are flying at half staff for the Capitol flags because of it. But we all know what could have been happening. They knew it was coming. In December, people were tweeting about this.
But that's totally different from so the Capitol Police issue is one of
no. I know, right?
But inside, these are elected officials debating policy in the chamber of the House where they're almost fight. That's a whole different thing.
But what I'm saying is they knew what was coming. Just like we saw with Black Lives Matter movement protests, if they wanted to make sure there was nothing happening on the Capitol steps, they could have made sure there was nothing happening on the Capitol steps and having an overwhelming amount of force there. But their fear was these fucking deplorables, which is a word I've never used before, but I have nothing else to say about it now, but that they were weaponized, and they knew that because they were posting on social media the weapons they were bringing. And my point, Henry, is they didn't want to have a gunfight on the Capitol steps. And
no, I get that. But David, I'm making a totally different point.
Oh, I understand.
Right? Like nothing to do with people invading the Capitol, but just like if you disagree with Connor Lamb, elected official, and you're from Texas, elected official, like there was a thing in where I think in Hong Kong a few months ago, it was like a giant fist fight.
Yeah, fight.
Once it becomes a way to exercise political power by being a former NFL player, because you'll actually crush somebody, like your government's not working, right? Like your government has failed, right? Like I'm super glad that they didn't have a fight because now it means you're from a certain jurisdiction in Texas. You just want to hire the biggest meathead you can find to get policy made, right? Like that is not a nation of laws.
They're going to be called liars more too, by the way. They should get used to it.
It's good that they're sensitive to it.
Well, we'll see. In theory,
no, they really are. That's what started the fight. Like I've noticed this. Like people are really sensitive to that. Like I get sometimes in fights, not fights, but but yeah, just saying you have bad info is a powerful insult still, which is not the same as like in Russia now. It's cool people are like, oh, nothing's true, right? That's not where we are.
Let's talk Brooklyn Nets, Jarod.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
Well, they're playing better. basketball wise. So that's good.
Did they win last night? I didn't see the end of the game.
Yeah, they won last night.
Without Kyrie and Kevin.
Yeah. And I think part of that, Coach, was you had the three core guys of Karras, Joe, and Jarrett Allen. Those three have familiarity and continuity with one another.
Jarrett played great. Yeah.
And Jarrett played the last two games in a row against Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid. Like, you know, I hate this. It doesn't show up in the box stats, but it's true. Like, if you watched him, like, he beat Joel down the floor numerous times, sprinting back. Like, and granted, it was Philly's second out of a back-to-back, but still, like,
still a win.
To be that shorthanded and win was a big thing. So there's COVID issues going on in the NBA. We know the NBPA just released their latest press release. 4 of the 450 some odd players tested positive. Okay. So on the Nets, Kevin Durant, as we know, is in the protocol contact tracing program, right? So it's because he was exposed to a positive test. He's been testing negative. The antibodies are still showing present in him. So it looks like originally he wasn't going to be able to come back till Tuesday coming up. But now they're saying, oh, since you still have the antibodies and you've been negative, we're going to go ahead and let you play on Sunday because he already had the virus last March, April, whenever that was in the spring. Okay, that's one piece. Right before the game, we got a second note from the Nets PR staff saying, oh, yeah, and by the way, Tyler Johnson's out too, safety protocol. We're like, yo, what the hell? So we asked Steve Nash, was this related to Kevin? Nope, not related to Kevin. Tyler Johnson has not tested positive either. He came in contact with someone with a positive test. Okay, so he's got to quarantine now for 7 days. All right, so that's one piece of it. The Nets played the Sixers last night. Seth Curry, Steph's brother, was already going to sit out that game for a sore ankle. Okay, so he was on the bench, already out, sore ankle. Cool, no problem, moving on. He spent the first quarter on the Sixers bench, and then the team was alerted of a positive test result. So that was a whole first quarter and pregame, whatever. He was out there. Now, there was intermittent mask wearing on the Sixers bench, and, you know, basketball's a contact sport, so dudes are coming in contact with them. So that's the thing. The Sixers then immediately put him into a isolation room at Barclays, and now they're starting the contact trace protocol starting from their New York hotel. And I think they stayed in Brooklyn last night or in New York last night to, you know, sort of figure out where the next step is on this. I mean, really what's happening now that we're seeing is that this is the NBA's nightmare, right? This was always going to happen. The minute you left that secure bubble, this was always going to happen. That is why the league only released half of a schedule, because they knew we're going to have to make up games because shit's going to get canceled. And we thought tonight, first the question was, well, did the Grizzlies fly? I mean, did the Nets fly to Memphis last night? Because they're playing the Grizzlies tonight on a back-to-back. But we have learned that that game is so far going on as scheduled. The Nets did actually fly to Memphis last night, and we'll see. But I think this is sort of the peril and the danger that the league is in. I mean, in right now, right? Is that you can't control this thing because guys, even if you're staying inside these guys have, like, you know, friends and family members and whomever coming into their orbit. And every time they're in contact with someone positive, this is potentially what's going to happen.
And it's an indoor high contact sport, right? Like
100%.
It's not baseball.
No, no.
I'm more concerned about intra-team than intra-game, right? Just because they're sharing airplanes and locker rooms, and I think one of you guys said this right away. Just they got to wear a mask everywhere. You have to if you are sharing a bench, sharing a locker room, just wear your mask. If you want to have the NBA play games, I'm because you really are swapping air, to quote Zach Binney, in those situations unless you are wearing the mask. Why not, guys? Just stop, cancel the game. Let take a couple of days off. Let's test them every day. If people still stay negative, you can start feeling a little bit better. Like you said, Jarod, you already built. You know you're going to have some cancellations, so do it. Just cancel it. Let's make sure we don't really have 5, 6, 8, 9 teams potentially, right?
Yep.
What's
and
the
we're all League Pass watchers here, so I'm sure everybody else is in the chat. You watch these games, and it is intermittent mask wearing. 2 guys have masks on, no guys have masks on. So it's like, well, what's even going on here?
Right.
Okay, so the NBA was very adventurous in the bubble in kind of going first with here's how you reopen, and they put a clinic together on how you do that. Let's say you scored player safety. You'd be like, oh, they scored it at safety level 100, right? Or I guess it's 99, right? And it went beautifully. This protocol now, where everybody gets to go home, Everybody gets to, like, every single player is, with the infection rates today, like incredibly high risk to at some point come into contact with the coronavirus, right? And then they all come together, often without masks, right? I felt for the Rockets a little bit when they were like, oh, it's a big problem to get a haircut with 2 other dudes from my team when we can all practice together without masks all day. Like, it is a little weird, right? So this would be, let's say, safety level 41 on my mythical scale. Why would the NBA go from safety level 99 safety level 41? I think there are a lot of reasons, one of which is players don't want to play in the bubble. But I'll give you one other theory as to why. It's because in the meantime, football and baseball went. Football and baseball, just like, the NBA is good now. They're the team they're the league that's good at this, and they're not going to catch hell for what's going on now, right? There's some infections within the ranks. Like, yeah, that happens to everybody. We're just like accustomed to it now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up something else too, Jarod. I haven't talked to you yet about it. Henry and I talked about it some yesterday. I want to preface it by saying that I have no insight, no personal insight regarding Kyrie Irving. I'm worried. To my knowledge, we know he didn't show up to play yesterday. He had not been in touch with Steve Nash. I don't know if that's changed, Jarod, but as of last night, Steve Nash's announcements was, I reached out to him. I've not heard back. We also have heard many whispers about his mental health, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. We've heard a lot of different things. Having studied this and mental diseases, psychology, Chris Farley, John Belushi, these are 2 topics I've studied to a degree. I'm concerned about him. It could be nothing, but guys, we've all been following the NBA for a long time. Normally, if it's girlfriend's not feeling well, kids sick, they say it. But the fact that there's been nothing and an admittance by the head coach that this guy hasn't even told me what's going on, that sounds off alarm bells to me. I'm genuinely concerned. I hope he's fine. I reached out to people. No one's given me an answer. Not a single person has known what's gone on. What have you heard, Jarod?
Yeah, so I first want to preface by saying I'm not a doctor, so I cannot diagnose any mental health conditions or what have you.
Of course not.
What I will say is I listen very carefully to what Kyrie says, which is always difficult because there's a lot of different things. But the one constant thing he said all his time here with the Nets is that basketball is the easy part. Basketball is the easy part. Basketball is the easy part. Well, that leads me to believe that the other shit is not the easy part for him, right? That's what that is telling me. Because every time anybody asks a basketball question, guys, this is basketball. This is easy. It's always this other stuff. Now, when we asked Nash last night before the game, hey, we heard Kyrie's out for personal reasons. Do we know what it is? I texted Kyrie, I have not heard. Okay, pregame, we don't talk to players. Only Nash comes out pregame.
Right.
Post-game, we asked the players, did you guys hear from Kyrie? Karis LeVert, they all said, yeah. Kyrie texted the group and said, you know, he won't be here for personal reasons, and we support him. He's like, that's a personal matter. We can't discuss it, right? So that is where it is right now. And I think for Kyrie, he is a introspective person. He is someone who tried to stop the NBA players from going to the bubble and playing in the midst of all the social unrest this summer. And I think, honestly, because I think he feels these things on a visceral level, like so many of us do. The Jacob Blake police officers not being charged, the Capitol shootings and all that craziness that went on. This, like, it as crazy as I don't even use crazy, as difficult as it may be to believe. I think for some people, those kinds of things feel like the walls are closing in, and I don't know what to do with anything or life. Again, basketball, easy. I can do that shit in my sleep. This stuff, I don't know. And I think with him, it's like, look, I got to get away from here. And so he did not travel with the team to Memphis. And I've reached out to people to try to figure out, do you have more than that? And it's really, from what I'm gathering, people are really trying to respect his privacy, and not those that do know are not saying anything. I don't think a lot of people do actually know, maybe beyond his teammates. So I would say maybe it's definitely something to be concerned about. But I think, you know, he's just going through it right now.
It's okay to be unsettled. He wouldn't be. He's not the first guy.
Look, that right. I mean, and thank you so much for putting it that way, Jarod. I am a doctor. No, I'm just kidding.
As you do a show from your car.
No, totally great doctor. I heard from a bunch of people who were in tears. You know, like just feeling like the world is not safe, right? for a lot of different reasons. And actually, one of the phone calls that I got was basically about it was kind of triggering about an abusive father. Not talking about Kyrie now, but like, but these are these men imposing themselves on people, right, in this very physical, aggressive way. It would make perfect sense to me that a good chunk of America would call in sick, right, or not want to travel to Tennessee, right? Like, yeah. No, that's not surprising to me.
I said the same thing. I talked to Henry yesterday about that. A couple girls that I've known most of my life reached out to me, and some of them were triggered the way Henry was just talking about. It's an unsettling time, and so yeah, Jarod, I completely get that, and hope. What scares me is what you said. Basketball is the easy part. That's what Chris Farley would say. This is the fun thing, right? That's what John Belushi would say. This is what feeds me, but it also fed the addiction, right? It is stressful to be Kyrie Irving and have to perform and produce the way he does because he wants to be great. That isn't great for anyone's mental health. It's part of the job, but it's challenging. So then you throw in all these other things. Maybe it'd be easier if Durant was there. He makes it easier for everyone. And I don't mean to make light of it. It's a concerning time. I know one thing. Steve Nash seems to me, I shouldn't say I know it, I suspect that he is not old school jerk. Mm-hmm. He is going to give Kyrie the space he needs, as he should. I wish everyone would be that way. It's a weird time, especially as a black man in America right now. All times have been just as terrible in reality, but it's more public now. And Kyrie, take all the time you need, buddy. Take all the time you need. Figure it out. We don't need to see you play yet.
So let me ask you guys this. I suspect that most coaches in Steve Nash's situation would have lied.
Would lie?
Would lie.
Yeah.
So like, as a favor to Kyrie to keep it in house, you can't keep it in house by saying the truth. If you say, I haven't heard from Kyrie, we all have alarm bells go off as media, and like, we have to find out what happened, right? And we will. But if you say, no, I tweaked his ankle in practice, which I think this has happened 10,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
I think Jarod and I have been lied to 10,000 times.
Yeah.
All the time.
What Steve's really saying is, I don't want this to be a thing that you, the media, are involved in, which is a real favor to Kyrie, especially, or anyone who might be dealing with a real privacy concern issue, right? You can't really keep it private by waving a flag about it, right?
Yeah.
So do you think Steve Nash would have been a better coach if he lied?
Man, look, everyone lies. I don't want to make it seem like Steve is some like holy angel who never tells lies. I think like Steve is just like an honest person in these moments, right? And I think when we talked to him, like he was genuinely concerned about Kyrie. So he's just like, I texted him, I haven't heard back. Like Steve's just like that. Now he's also a rookie head coach. Maybe 7 years down the line, he won't do that anymore after he gets hardened by this. I think that that's just his approach to this. And I think to Coach's point, he's right. He is the right person, I think, in this scenario. Like an old school, hard driving guy, this would be bad news and disaster blowing up everywhere. I think Steve and his just sort of, because he'll probably be like, Kyrie, dude, take whatever time you need. It's fine. We'll figure this shit out. You come back when you're ready. I think that is the right approach right now. But to piggyback and let the sort of our viewers into the behind the scenes in media. So after, we've talked to the players, there's usually a gap in time for the next person comes on. And so the reporters, we're all talking to each other. I'm not going to say who, but obviously very good reporters are like, so does anybody know the protocol about if a player doesn't show up and they're not on the injury report, are they flying with the team to Memphis? Like, and everybody's like chiming in and the ding, ding, like if there were little light bulbs popping up, it was just like, holy hell. And it's just, that's our job, right? Like it's like, we have to find the truth. What is this thing? And honestly, it may something be as simple as it's just a personal thing. And he's just not in a good space right now to be doing this and talking to us. Also, additional note, he didn't talk to us after the win in Utah and not at practice the next day. So this could have been bubbling for a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of the Nets, though, I love what they're trying to do on offense. They're not just playing hero ball, even when Durant and Kyrie, they're doing it more. By the way, those guys are heroes, to be fair.
Right.
right? As I was telling a really
If you're gonna play hero ball, you don't want to play it with players like that.
right. Yeah. You can't have the Avengers without real superheroes, right?
Right.
They've got a couple of superheroes, but it's a nice mixture. There's nothing wrong with that. This isn't, we talked the other day about how the European game is compared to our game. Well, they don't have Kevin Durant over there. They have to do what they do. All right. They don't even have they don't have the European version of Kevin Durant. His name is Luka Doncic. He plays in the NBA. Okay. They have no choice but to play the way they try to do. The Nets are trying to do things. It's a nice mixture. Yeah, they're intriguing. They are intriguing. And I think winning a game without their two stars provides some foundational bench work. Like, okay, I can sit both my guys, and these guys have figured out for 48 minutes. I just need 6-minute segments a couple times a game in the playoffs. That could really be helping. That could really help them down the road. I liked Henry's thing on Milwaukee. I actually haven't told it. Henry, I was going to tell you, I may focus on Milwaukee for my article next week.
Oh, welcome to our editorial meeting, everybody. Let's do this.
Right. This saves me a phone call later. Yeah, I was studying stats yesterday and saw that they lead the league in 3-point shooting. We wrote that last week. They're this, juggernaut offense, and Giannis isn't doing great. All things Henry wrote. So I want to see what the hell's going on there. So I watched him today. I started watching tape this morning as you were writing our document. So
Cool.
Yeah, they're not easy to guard. They play the Jazz tonight. They're not easy to guard. That's for sure.
It's an interesting development. It is. It's just funny that's like so far outlier. It's not weird to me that they're good. It's weird to me that their offense is off the charts, and maybe it'll come down to earth. It's early yet, but
yeah.
Hey, can we go back to Jarod Allen for 1 second?
Yeah, please. I love him.
So there's this theory of management that like you get the best out of people by stressing the hell out of them.
Bad idea.
So, for instance, you got like competing managers of divisions say only one of you is gonna get the promotion, and and just have them like have a dogfight. I always kind of hated that. But with Jarod Allen playing Super Bowl this year, I'm reminded that back when Kenny Atkinson was struggling for his job and then ultimately lost it, it was a little bit of a struggle for control over the roster. And one of the stories going around at that time, I think it's published somewhere, I certainly heard it myself, was that like the new regime, i.e. Kyrie and KD and everyone who came with them, like Jarod Allen was out. Like he was going to be replaced by DeAndre Jordan. And that was that. And Kenny was a bit of an advocate for the younger players, Jarod Allen and others. And so I don't know if that's all real, but I would believe that Jarod Allen might feel that he was playing for his future as a Net, right? Yeah. And so he struggles through the end of last year. I mean, he did pretty well. And then he comes back to this season like ready to kill people. And he's amazing.
Very good.
And his hair is perfect. And like, but to me, like that management philosophy sucks, but I think it may have actually worked here.
Go ahead,
Go ahead, Coach.
Well, I was just going to say, we talked this the other day, they've got a little Laker feel with those two guys at center, right? Mm-hmm. Remember the Lakers, and we can talk about the Lakers too. We wrote about this when I picked them to win in June, led the league in block shots and points in the paint. That identity of we're crushing you at the rim on both ends. Oh yeah, we have LeBron James and Anthony Davis too, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, the Nets aren't there yet. I haven't looked up their stats. I didn't look them up today as to points in the paint versus block shots, but I watched them play last night. I've seen them a couple times. Jarod Allen, DeAndre Jordan are no jokes around the rim. Like if you try to block their shot at the rim, you might lose an arm. They're hammer dunking with ferocity, like a volleyball spike. It's risky.
Yeah, you might lose in your head, right? You got to think about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would hurt. So there's something, and we got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Yeah. So I thought the Nets would be pretty good. They might be a little bit better than pretty good if they can win without these guys. Now, Durant's health, Kyrie's health, these are all fit. I mean, Kyrie's missed a lot of playoff games, so we're a long way from knowing that. But they've done a hell of a job, and I give Nash huge credit. And just a real quick on the Lakers, Gasol and Montrezl Harrell. I think average a combined 16 points a game. Montrez at 12 and Mark's at 4. But big Marc Gasol addition 4. 16 points a game. I think Dwight and JaVale were like at 14. But this Laker version isn't leading the league in block shots, nor are they leading the league in points in the paint. They're good. They're top 10. They're not number 1. That identity is not there yet. They've got time to figure stuff out. That's why I have to keep on watching the games. I'm not ready to anoint them champion. That's for sure.
I think the Lakers are in cruise control right now and going to start ramping themselves up as the season goes on. We saw a little bit of that last night in the game, their win over the loss of the Spurs, and even in their win a couple nights ago against the Grizzlies. They slept walk through 3.5 quarters and were like, all right, we start playing now. And I think that's just LeBron conserving and all that because it's short time span. Just to finish up that Nets and Jarrett Allen point, I've, covering the team, like I've been able to see him since his rookie year and watch him all the way through. And you see a difference in him, not only physically, right? Like he's gotten stronger and put on more muscle weight because he was super frail when he got in. A little more. Joel Embiid, a large mammoth man who would bully him all the time because he's just bigger and stronger. Wasn't bullying him so much last night. And Jarrett had that fight back. One time, I don't know if you caught it, when he went up and got fouled by Embiid, he turned and had his hand almost cocked. He was going to take a swing on him. And I was like, ooh, look at Jarrett Allen getting a little saying it with his chest. I kind of appreciated that for him. So that was nice to see. And look, he's a restricted free agent. So Josiah, you got more money in the world than, not more than Jeff Bezos, but you're one of the capitalist machine frontrunners. Pay that dude because somebody's going to pay him a shit ton of money. I don't care about the luxury tax. Pay that.
Sure.
Jarod, what do you think about the theory I was espousing there?
I think there's truth to that. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, because look, you know how superstar guys are. They think because we're elite players, we're also elite GMs. And we've known that not to be true. Like you guys are good at what you do. You don't even know how to identify talent so good. But they see it as, yeah, but you're not good right now. I need you to be good today, not a month from now. Because they see their own mortality in front of them. They're like, DeAndre can do this. I've seen him do it. I haven't seen Jarrett Allen do it yet. But that scenario that you mentioned, Jarrett was like, okay, the Nets offered me a deal. It wasn't what I wanted. They got DeAndre Jordan here. Fuck that. I'm going to show him better than this dude. And if you dropped an alien down to this planet and said, who's better, Jarrett Allen, DeAndre Jordan? They'd be like, that dude with the fro. He's really good. And I think with KD and Kyrie being out, KD especially, he's looking at it being like, I think we might have to play Jarrett Allen more. Look, they got their best friend $40 million, so he's fine.
Right.
He got it. Let Jarrett Allen play.
Hey, did you watch the game last night, Jarod? Mm-hmm. So are the announcers, are they in person or not? I thought they weren't.
Yeah. Ian and Sarah are in Barclays.
Are they really? Because the cheese man got himself a nice layup and they couldn't sham it. And I thought when they first said it, I was watching the game, but I had a couple of the screens on and I thought, no, I know that looked like the cheese man to me. And then I went back. I'm like, it was definitely the cheese man. Don't call him man. And then I thought maybe they just were farther away.
No, they are in the arena. That crew of Ian, Sarah, and Michael Grady. Yeah, they stay local. I don't think they travel though.
Yeah, they may not.
I think they do the road games from Barclays.
That makes sense.
I just want to be clear that we're chastising them for misidentifying a player whose name we don't actually ever say.
I wouldn't have called him Landry Shamet. So you mentioned the Lakers losing the Spurs last night. When I was watching the Spurs last week without LaMarcus Aldridge, I thought, man, and I probably said this to Henry, like, man, if they had LaMarcus, they'd be good. They were just missing that one stud bucket getter, and he's back, and he was terrific last night. They're good. They're not a fun team to play at all.
No.
I think they've got now. I don't know if Mark can do this all the time, but he's on his way right now. They look good.
They do. I like what I'm seeing from the Spurs, Dejounte Murray, the young guys. Like they, I thought Pop was actually going to retire at the end of last year. I don't know why. I was like, he's probably done. But shit, he may stick around for another who knows how long. If these guys get good, it might be like, all right, that might be worth sticking around here.
Did you see what he said about the political situation this week?
No, I did
not. As much as you might get the vibe he's ready to retire from basketball, like he's still got plenty of fire for Donald Trump, man. Right, he went off, like he like the whole thing. He's Josh Hawley this and Mitch McConnell that, like what, like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. I read it all, and then there's a video too. Like Like that's a good use of Zoom right there. You want
He
to check
wants
out
all
that
the
thing.
smoke with those guys.
All right. Caleb wrote a few minutes ago in the chat. I saw this right when our show started. As someone texted me that Trump has announced he's not going to the inauguration, which I never, ever thought he would. He can't go and still continue to lead his people. He just needs their money. He just needs their money. He needs to stay in, whether they support a media company he does or whatever. Judy's quick. Legal's quick. She's not just legal anymore. I never thought for 1 second he could officially be seen because his people, those same deplorable people, would be very upset with him. He's got to be seen as the victim all the way to the end. That's what I always felt anyway. So to me, that's not news. I'm thrilled he won't be there. I just want the media to never show us a tweet he does again when he's out.
Yeah.
I don't care about
Why do we follow him? I never ever followed him.
I've never followed him.
I don't. Yeah, just it would hurt him a lot to have only 1,000 followers.
Oh my God, he'd like cry.
I would
Henry,
never follow him.
Bounce back game last night for your Blazers. Game time, baby.
Yeah. How many points did he have? I think 1 million. Was it 1 million at the end?
38
Yeah,
was
listen,
it?
the Timberwolves are the cure that ails you. You got any problems? Just win Minnesota. You'll feel better.
Without Karl Anthony Towns, right? Yeah. That definitely like they're not a good team. I mean, come on. Like
I didn't see the game.
I'm not excited about this Blazers so far. I mean, I there's some things I'm excited about, but the overall team performance, I'm like, whoa, God, not what we were hoping for. And this game did nothing to change that view generally, but there was a super happy part of this game, which is, you may recall, we were talking about Nasir Little got really sick with COVID, like couldn't walk for days, and he was bad, but he played whatever 9 minutes or whatever. He actually got back on the court, which I thought might be weeks away. As we're talking about COVID going around in the NBA, I'm worried about, for some players, it could be really serious. I'm also worried about, like, is Mike D'Antoni on that plane in Memphis?
Yeah.
With all these people we've known exposed,
He's
right? Like,
old, or older.
Well, I'm sure, I would hope, like my dad and mom have a KN95 mask, which really helps.
It helps, but do you want it, like, getting on a plane and a bus and day after day with people who were exposed? Like, just, you were there for it. Like, would you do that? Like, it's a little crazy.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's a little different than like just going to the grocery store, You're living in the grocery store for weeks on end with people who have it. It's a little worse.
No,
like, the mask is nice, but geez.
Do you guys have thoughts about what seems like is going to happen, which is league expansion? Seattle and Vegas look like they are. The Seattle mayor already said, I've talked to Adam. It looks like, this is a very strong possibility. And Adam has always said from the beginning, the league was going to expand at some point under his tenure, right? And I think the fact that the owners lost all that money this past season, has accelerated the fact that they want expansion, because that's a $5 billion influx of cash, which means they get to keep all that money. So,
So this is when all of the metrics around the business of the league are bad, the one that's left strong is this franchise value thing, right? And that's where, and it used to be, I think it was 300 million expansion fee. Basically, this is the money that the incoming new owner will pay to be distributed to the other owners. Like now that number goes way up, right? The 2.5 billion we hear per franchise, etc. So now suddenly, like, you can do pretty well betting that the NBA will do whatever brings the billionaires the most money in the next week. It's usually short-term thinking, right? So alas, here we are. The other one that's for sure coming is like London and Mexico City, right? This is where you get the real new revenue streams, because you get new TV markets that really matter, etc. So the argument against it has been dilution of talent. And there won't be more superstars, but David could write an essay on this, like the Jarod Allen, who's a good example? Whoever the 50th best NBA player is about as good as the 1,000th best. And so I think there's no shortage of talent. It might be that a little harder to get contenders, but I don't think we have a problem with getting players to make 40-win teams.
41.
Do you think that they were waiting as long as they could wait for maybe to get 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, and now they have no choice but to do it? Is that what they were ultimately waiting for? Is just a crazy high number they could get. And then now, because they need the money now, they've gone ahead and said, we'll just do it in the next couple of years. I don't think it's happening tomorrow.
I think you have those board of governors conference calls, and at some point it's like Michael Jordan saying, "Hey, we need more money." But when it's like Michael Jordan and Tillman Fertitta and Mickey Harrison, enough people being like, "We need more money," then at some point they're like, "All right, push the money button."
Push the money button.
Bang.
What Henry said though, what Henry said is what I would have said. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of guys playing in Europe right now that'll be in the NBA, and they're just as good as anyone else except for the top elite guys.
Now Harry Giles gets to start somewhere, right? Like,
yeah, you'll have right. If they did a better job developing their players for franchise 1 through 30, then we might have a few more stars. There's some guys out there. If Jeremy Grant had been treated like this year 1, year 2, he was young, he was 20 years old. Maybe he could have been a real all-star. I don't know. But there's plenty of talent, and I think it's great. It's fun to play with how to separate the divisions. I started playing with that the other day.
Yeah.
I'd like that. There's some cool things they could do.
For
I
sure.
think Minnesota will go east, probably.
I'd move Memphis and New Orleans east, probably.
yeah.
Yeah, right. I would like to see the Texas split up a little bit. That's all those teams. Those are 3 teams. Well, maybe Houston won't be so good now going forward, but yeah, whatever. It'll be fun. I think it's good. I'm glad more players making more money makes me happy.
Well, the other thing I like about it is that it opens up more job opportunities now, right? There can be more head coaches, more athletic trainers, more blah, 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 more beat reporters, because now I got teams so that part's good. I do like, Coach, that you're calming me down from the whole, like, but the talent's not going to be as good. Like that's my number one concern. Like, shit, it's going to be 2 shitty teams now that like win 10 games and like,
I'm telling you, there's just Henry's right. The 50th, maybe not the 50th, the 100th best guy and the talent best guy felt about the same. Give me the right opportunity, the right coaching, they'd be fine. What I'd like to see partnered with this expansion, though, guys, is a commitment to develop coaches and executives that are minorities. And I don't just mean Black men, women, Asian. The game is a global game. Let's have an incubator for that. But not former players. Nothing to get. Former players already have their advantage, and they've earned it. They're amazing players. They know that system. There are so many coaches from high school, college, and internationally that just weren't great players. Doesn't mean they're not great coaches.
Yeah.
You got to give them a chance. Let's incubate that. The Becky Hammonds of the world. If Sue Bird ever wanted to coach, I'm sure she'd be amazing. So that'd be fine too. You don't have to be in the NBA or even be a great college player to be a great coach.
David, this is the time to abolish the draft, right? Like,
oh yeah.
I say this because, like, if you have a worry about developing talent and 2 more teams, then the draft preserves bad GMs and bad developmental systems, right? But if it were really a competition, like, now's the time for the Black organization, right? Now's the time for the Christian organization, whatever it is. Like, try it however you want to try it, see who you can attract. But like, if someone gets really good at turning a prospect who believes, basically if the G League select team becomes an NBA franchise and it works, like, ooh, everybody wants to go there, right? Like, you can't really innovate in that way because the players can't choose where they go, right?
Right.
But if it were valuable to really have players want to play for you, like, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Hey,
I like that, Henry.
If the NBA expands to Paris, TrueHoop Paris office will be opening, and I'll be covering that team.
I'll be there too. Let's do it. Let's do that.
But then I was saying, then we do a Zoom call from when you're in Paris. You're gonna have to have Brooklyn as your background.
It's fine, no problem.
I'll be doing it from a citron outside a patisserie. What's the time? I apologize. It's my job to end the show on time. I can't actually see a clock. Okay. The last thing I want is to get Judy upset. My goodness.
Will you be back in the car on Monday?
I think everything should be situation normal. Yeah, this was just a little, I explained it to Jarod. There's a lot going on the Wi-Fi at my house right now, and I've kind of pulled rank on everyone else. They're only trying to like save the world and get educated, and I'm like, no, I need the Wi-Fi. But today I was like, I'll move out, and I was gonna go to Judy's house, but then I just ended up it's almost an hour drive, and I ended up just not having time. So
for the record, this was the smoothest show you've ever had.
Perfect.
Very smooth.
It was
So instead, what's going to happen is I'm just going to move here. I live in the car now.
That's
And,
great.
Are you gonna get
be good.
business? Are you gonna get business speed Wi-Fi now? Because like we got too many people in this house.
Dude, we have very expensive Wi-Fi at my house, but we just have a temporary situation. And whatever, it's boring. But everybody that I've ever met is using our Wi-Fi right now. That's what's happening. All right, you guys are on my Wi-Fi. What the hell are you doing on my Wi-Fi? All right, it's time to end the show now, right? I'm yelling at you about Wi-Fi.
Yes.
That was 3 minutes ago.
So true. All right. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, David. We will be back on Monday with actual proper connections and not in the car.